The relative age effect in sport and education shows a bias towards the older students in the year. So those born in September, if the year starts in September, like in the UK, they have an advantage. Those born at the end, August in the UK, a disadvantage. This effect has far more literature in sports than education, and this paper proposed a model to explain the effects with some suggestions to even out the playing field. During the paper, they argue that social agents, specifically parents, coaches, and athletes, have the largest influence on the effect through the Matthew effect, Pygmalion effect, and gallaty effect. Youth sports are often grouped by annual age bands, giving participation and performance advantages to early born individuals. A simple example of these advantages could be physical maturity. You have probably seen year groups where some of the boys look like men and others still small and scrawny. I was one of those. But just because they are big and strong doesn't mean they are learning and developing the same as the others. What happens when the others catch up physically? Are they still the best? This is why in the paper the authors discuss long-term development and how the social agents should focus on development over winning. That discussion can go off into early specialization or early diversification, philosophies of practice, and a whole host of other topics. But for this discussion, I want to stick with the relative age effect. Parents, coaches, and athletes are the proposed social agents that influence the relative age effect, having the power or agency to increase or decrease the effect. The first effect mentioned to contribute to the relative age effect is the Matthew effect, often quoted as the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, showing that starting with privilege or more compounds over time, increasing the gap between individuals. This effect can be seen in scientists gaining notoriety because of citations on one paper, so the big break they got pushes them further and further from other scientists. It is also in education, with reading as a good example. Students with good reading skills tend to read more, increasing their skills. Those without those starting skills don't read as much, so avoid reading. The gap between the students then increases over time. In sports, this can be the starting age or starting time for the individual. Those that start earlier have more experience, which can manifest into the Matthew effect, increasing the gap over time. The second and third effects are both self-fulfilling prophecies. If a false belief is followed by a new behavior grounded on the false belief, it can make the previously false conception or belief come true. I think I am bad at something, I don't practice, I am bad at the thing. Or vice versa, I think I'm good at something, I practice, I am good at the thing. The notion of increasing your strengths. The Pygmalion effect has been found in teacher-pupil relationships, with the teacher placing expectations on the pupils, which seem to disappear over time, but those initial effects can still be significant. An example from youth sports coaching shows coaches offered high expectancy athletes more reinforcement, while low expectancy athletes receiving more general instruction. Because the coach thought one would do better than the other, they helped one over the other. Similarly, the high expectancy athletes were awarded more supplementary feedback, praise and instruction compared to low expectancy athletes. This describes coaches having favourites and changing their actions because of them. This can be self-fulfilling because if you're not a favourite, you may leave because of the biased coaching going on, but the coach then sees the low expectancy athletes leaving, fulfilling their preconception and the self-fulfilling prophecy. The gallaty effect is the individual placing expectations on themselves. Despite the authors not finding any specific studies directly with the effect in sport, it might explain the role of the athletes in generating their own practice, motivation, expectations, and amplifying the relative age effect. Athletes are often selected to elite teams based on physical maturity, those early birth individuals, rather than skill. That could create a false belief in the athlete that they are skillful, which is the start of the gallaty effect. As the athletes believe they are skillful, they train and practice, continuing to gain success, fulfilling the prophecy. Having said that, the gallaty effect can also explain why relatively younger players excel in professional sports and get awards and high salaries. Those that get selected might be based on skill, and with the training and practice alongside that, when they catch up in maturity, they can exceed their peers, reaching greater heights. All of these interactions were placed into this diagram, the relative age effect at the bottom being fed by the gallaty effect from the athletes in the middle, and the parents at the top left by the Matthew effect. The relative age effect going out to the coaches, because that is the talent pool that coaches are looking at, creating their expectations on how they coach the group, and their own biases, potentially. That is where talent ID, early specialization, and all of those conversations can integrate, but sticking with the relative age effect, The coach's interaction with the athlete has a Pygmalion effect, with their expectations impacting the athletes, very similar to the parents' interaction with the athletes. External expectations leading to behaviors fulfilling the prophecy. The Pygmalion effect between the coach and parents is because of their interactions. So, if coaches' expectations on athletes are discussed to parents, their expectations may also be impacted, which could lead to the 4-year-old academy players in football, which I don't want to discuss in this video. Based on this model, eliminating the Matthew effect and Pygmalion effects from parents and coaches, the relative age effect may be eliminated or at least decreased. There are lots of ways you can tackle these things, biobanding, birthday banding, and other ways of grouping individuals as one approach, but person-centered coaching is another approach where differentiation of task difficulty can suit the individual rather than the groups, so it isn't too difficult for early maturers and not too easy for late maturers. An obvious example that springs to mind is getting them to do fitness. The early maturers are more likely to do better, so focus on individual targets instead of group goals, and again, thinking back to development of individuals instead of winning with the team. I could go on for a while about person-centered coaching, but the main takeaway for me from this paper is that actions matter. The expectations you put on yourself and on others impacts your decisions as well as others, reinforcing reflection and metacognitive awareness tasks when working with others and coaching yourselves. But what do you think?